Today we're going to talk about digital sovereignty. Hi, I'm Yvo.
Hi, I'm Colin.
Today we're going to talk about digital sovereignty. Digital sovereignty is a new hot topic. Multiple people think you need to do a lot to be sovereign of, for instance, the United States. To be more independent on your infrastructure, on your data and everything. And today we're going to look a bit on what we can do in our applications to facilitate that.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's not just that you need to break away from certain hosting parties, but yeah, there are some architectural decisions that you're already making today that can have influence on your independence. So let's take a look at why we are doing this now. Well, if you look at this page, then, well, that looks a lot like regulation. You see the Cloud Act, you see the NIS2 regulations and everything. And it's not only about geopolitical circumstances and regulations that you need to comply with. We are talking about it because clients are asking for it.
Yeah, it's a pretty hot topic, I think.
Yeah. Also, because you can see the client sentiment is shifting, there are clients that are asking us, yeah, can you host our application and our data also on something else than Azure? Because, yeah, we are an Azure first company, consultancy company, and also in MSDC, our managed services department.
Is that a make or break for customers?
It starts shifting towards that.
Okay.
We haven't lost opportunities because of it yet, but some clients are asking for it. And also, if you look at, yeah, especially in the public sector, in the governmental sector, they are looking very seriously at where the data is hosted and the influence they have on the location.
Okay.
Yeah, for normal stuff, Azure was our first choice, is still our first choice, because Azure is a great platform until it isn't anymore. Because if you look at the data, yeah, we can still say it's in the Netherlands, it's in West Europe. That's just fine, but in the end, the US Cloud Act does apply to that. Also, if you look at identity management, for every account we use Entra ID. It's a great identity platform. It's very configurable, very safe, high quality. You can use managed identities to access your database and your key vaults, and that also works really fine. But you are tied to Microsoft for using Entra ID. You cannot use Entra ID on other platforms than Azure, or at least you need to be connected to your tenant on Azure. Yeah, and if we create applications, then we tend to use the Azure PaaS services. You can have an app service, you can have a SQL Azure database, you can use a key vault, you can use storage accounts. That's all very comfortable and easy to use, and it gives you great speed in development and deployment. And yeah, hosting is really nice. You don't have to worry about setting up your web server, applying service packs. That's where the PaaS services are really great. But yeah, you are tied to Azure PaaS. Yeah. If you use an app service, yeah, it's not that other suppliers also have app services. They have comparable features or comparable options, but it's not just the same language and the same setup. So that's a tie-in. Yeah, and if you look at compliancy for some certifications like ISO 27001 and other certifications, then you can be certified with those certificates. But yeah, that's not the same as being compliant with every rule and legislation that can apply to you. So sometimes you really need to be in a different place than under the US Cloud Act, for instance.
Yeah, so you're pretty tied to Azure. Yeah. And what are things you can do to potentially step away from that?
There are some things you can do, and it's not
nice.
Yeah, it's not even that hard to do so. To investigate that, we did just a small proof of concept with some standard application that we had. And it's not a really Hello World app, but it's a small application we recently developed. It's a React front-end, it's a .NET API backend with a SQL Azure database. We had an Azure function for a time trigger background process. We used the key vault and a storage account as supporting services. Yeah, and we investigated some different cloud platforms. There are some alternatives, and Scaleway is one of the European platforms.
Where is Scaleway based?
in France.
France, okay.
Yeah.
So that's EU regulations and...
Fully EU.
Okay.
So you don't have any dependency outside of the EU when you use Scaleway. And the platform that we used there was Scaleway Kapsule. That is a managed Kubernetes service they provide. So if you move to Kubernetes, you can host that on all kinds of different cloud platform providers. And Scaleway has their own managed version of Kubernetes, like Azure has AKS, Azure Kubernetes Services. Scaleway has Kapsule. And that's quite easy to use. You can use Terraform for infrastructure as code. Scaleway has its own Terraform provider. So if you are used to using Bicep for infrastructure deployment, the step to Terraform is not that big.
So that's a nice first step to your infrastructure as code as Terraform, so you can go into Scaleway, but you can also go into Azure for
and
your
you
resources.
can still be on Azure because Azure supports Terraform also. So that's a change you can make without moving away from Azure.
Yeah.
Also, Kubernetes, you can deploy your Docker containers to Kubernetes services also in Azure. So you don't even need to move away from Azure to have these architectural independencies for that.
Okay, so essentially you can get your application ready to go into multiple environments, so Scaleway, Azure, without actually doing so, but just preparing it for
because
eventually
some of the services that are really Azure specific, like an app service and SQL Azure, you can replace them with more cloud agnostic like services, like Kubernetes with Docker containers. For the database, we replaced that with the PostgreSQL database. That is also widely used and looks a lot like SQL Azure. That's not really that hard. So that's easy to do. As you can see here, the API and the front end, we deploy them in containers, in Docker containers on Kubernetes. For the identity management, that's a bit harder. Entra ID is really tied into the whole application with authentication and authorization. We replace the MSAL package in the front end with the React OIDC context package. That's a bit more just JWT token based authentication, more cloud agnostic or more identity provider agnostic, more general. And we moved to Citadel. That's a Swiss-based company.
Okay.
They have an identity service. The SaaS option is hosted on the Google Cloud, so that's
again
US based, but their option is also to do it self-hosted.
Okay.
It's really an application. You can also self-host in a Docker container, and then you're fully independent. And the platform works quite nice. Scaleway also has different other features like managed services. For instance, the secret manager in Scaleway. That also makes it possible to replace the key vault with other stuff for secrets.
So that was the moment you actually had to change things in your application to make it Scaleway required. Yeah,
some of the things we really needed to change in the code. As I said, the application code did not require much change, but for Entity Framework, for instance, you have use SQL Server. You replace that with use NPG SQL.
Yeah, okay, the Postgres variant.
Yeah. And the MSAL package was removed, and you need to change something to use that other identity provider.
Yeah, okay, clear.
Also for monitoring, you can use OpenTelemetry. You can use application insights already with OpenTelemetry. And if you move entirely to OpenTelemetry, then you can put your log in. For instance, you can build great dashboards in Grafana Cloud. So that's also not really necessary to do on the Azure way.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So that again is an example of making it portable for multiple cloud providers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
So identity is a bit more difficult because we are also used to using managed identities to connect to our database from the application. So we say the app service has a system assigned managed identity, and the app service is therefore authenticated and can access the database. You cannot use that in Kubernetes that way. So you have to have secrets and environment variables in connection strings.
Okay.
But it's acceptable and it works.
Nice.
As I said, we did a proof of concept on Scaleway. I have very small demo on Scaleway. This is the Scaleway console. It's the equivalent of the Azure portal. what you see here is we created a Kapsule instance, the Kubernetes platform. It consists of 3 nodes, so everything is in balance and failover. What you also see is that we are hosted in the zone AMS1. That's nice because Scaleway is a French provider. They have a data center in Paris, but they also have a data center in Amsterdam.
So data residency is still in the Netherlands, so that doesn't change?
Yeah, it's really in the Netherlands.
Cool, that's nice.
Yeah. And for instance, that database, let me scroll down a bit. We have the serverless database here, or the managed database, I must say. So here you see a PostgreSQL database, and same as in Azure, you can set different properties for compute and scale and memory. So you can really choose how heavy or how expensive your database server can be. But it's quite easy to set up. I created some Terraform code and deployed the entire environment. We changed the application code a tiny bit and created Docker containers to deploy. And it all worked really nice.
Nice. Sounds good.
Yeah, there are some things that you give up when you go to these platforms. We investigated different cloud providers. Scaleway I chose because of the Terraform option and the secret manager they provide. But you also have OVH Cloud, is also French. Hetzner and Stackit, they are German. Stackit, some team member calls it the little cloud.
Oh yeah, I read about that.
Yeah, Stackit is owned by...
same mother company.
Yeah, the mother company of Lidl and Kaufmarkt. A few weeks ago, the Dutch government even published a master agreement they created with Stackit, that the Dutch government, several departments are now allowed to also host their data and applications on Stackit.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and for me it's kind of an indicator that this becomes reality today, and not next week or next year.
Yeah, it seems very actual.
Yeah, it actually is. But we used Scaleway for a proof of concept, and there are some things that you don't have. Identity management is indeed a harder thing to replace, but also AI. If you look at Foundry on Azure with Azure OpenAI, the OpenAI services that are available, there's simply no feasible replacement for that in these clouds. You have some models that are deployed in a managed way in that cloud platform, but they are not up to the level of OpenAI or Anthropic.
That's fair.
Yeah. Well, if you look at different types of clients, then also some clients need a different approach than others. If you have a commercial SaaS company, for them it's mostly about data. Where is our data? Can we always have access to our data? And is our data safe? Well, then the data residency statement and the EU regions should be enough and can be enough.
So stay on Azure.
Yeah, and if you're looking at government or semi-government, and it's about legal legislations and everything, then you can consider to move to a different cloud platform. And if you look at healthcare, then it's very much about very personal data and everything. So the rules for that are more strict. And critical infrastructure, if you really need to be sovereign in a technical way, then there's no other way than host it by yourself.
Do it yourself.
Yeah, but that's not something we do a lot. Well, to come to a conclusion, what can you do without leaving Azure? If you containerize your applications, don't just deploy to an app service or everything, but you create a Docker container, you put that in a container registry, and you deploy that. Docker will run everywhere. That's the promise. You could say it works on my machine. Well, then we ship your machine, and that's the promise that we have with Docker. So you can also move that to different cloud platforms. For observability, we are used to application insights. That's really nice, but in Insights you can already use the OpenTelemetry SDK. instead of the regular App Insights SDK, then you're also more portable for other platforms. That will help. And your secrets, we really like the Key Vault because it's very secure. But if you have a different abstraction layer for that, if you use environment variables, don't use direct Key Vault references, but make an abstract layer in that, then you're also, then it's easier for you to move. Yeah, and also your Azure pipelines or your GitHub Actions. If you have vendor tasks in there, like the Azure CLI, then you move to Azure. Then you deploy to Azure. But if you use the Azure CLI from PowerShell or Bash, whatever, then it's also easier to change that script to a different provider.
So things for me to specifically do is step away from Azure specific things and make it a bit more general, like you just said.
Yeah, and it's always a trade-off because you have to think about if you make it much harder to be cloud agnostic, so to say, but if it will double your development and maintenance time, then it's not really cost effective.
So it's the ultimate, it depends.
Yeah, it always depends. But it's good to be aware of what you can do and how you can do that, because if a client asks for it, then there are some things you can do.
Be aware of it. Yeah, nice. I learned a lot.
Okay, so as I said, it's not a hype cycle. You need to be aware of what is available and what clients need. And in the end, it's not really about Azure being a problem, because Azure is a great platform and we love it and we still use it every day. Yep. And I have no intention of leaving it. But if you need to be more independent, then you can have a problem on that. And also, you can start with these principles today, even.
Yeah, cool. Nice. Well, thanks, Yvo. Learned a lot. Great. And thanks for watching. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. See you later.